Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily, the first English news program in Poland. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. The first ever equality march took place in Płock under the slogan Płock Powers Equality. The organizers were expecting around 2,000 participants. In addition to this march, there were 7 counter-manifestations organized by the All Polish Youth, among others.
This equality march, the first equality march in Płock, was under the honorary patronage of Andrzej Nowakowski, the mayor of this city. This was despite the opposition of local scientists, former opposition activists in the Polish People's Republic, and doctors who opposed this event being under honorary patron. As Andrzej Nowakowski explained, everyone should have equal rights.
Płock is a city of peace. It is a city that does not exclude anyone, and here they do not throw stones at anyone. I believe that people are good by nature, and you need to create a space where you can show this goodness. Such is the march today, peaceful and open. Of course, the march is demanding certain things, like respect for other people. The March of Equality is guided by very basic rules, such as peace. It is not about violence, it is not about fighting, it's about manifesting your rights and doing it peacefully. As you can see, colorful, smiling people.
It is nice and cheerful. People around are curious. They look at us, there is police. We're here to show that they can feel safe and that there is a place where they can feel good.
We are a counter-manifestation. We are the march of normality. We are not flaunting. We do not flaunt what we do in bed outside the home. Here we have a representation that they are lifting their covers and showing everyone what they have there. We are just fed up with this flaunting, making themselves victims and trying to prove that they are better people, simply. We are the people who have been brought up on some normal principles, such as biology, which has taught us since the dawn of time.
7 counter-manifestations were registered for the same day, including a demonstration organized by the All Polish Youth. Counter-demonstrators were separated by a police line, so there was no direct contact between the demonstrators of the Equality March and the counter-demonstrators who simply disliked the values this Equality March represents. There was no aggression, apart from verbal altercations. The situation which took place in Białystok did not repeat itself. This march was secured by several thousand officers.
The government has announced the lowering of taxes. Deputy Prime Minister Jacek Sasin informed at a press conference that the Law and Justice government will alleviate some of the tax burden off of the Polish nation.
Spotykamy się dzisiaj na początku sierpnia.
We meet today at the beginning of August. 10 days of this month is behind us, and I am talking about it because those last 10 days were the initial days during which young Poles up to 26 years of age who have already started working do not pay the personal income tax. From August 1st, this regulation adopted by the Parliament came into effect, earlier adopted by the Government of Law and Justice. It gives extraordinary relief to the youngest employees. At the same time, we remind you that from October 1st, another tax reduction will enter into force. This will reduce the personal income tax for all employees from 18 down to 17%. This is the next step in tax reduction that the Law and Justice government implements throughout its rule.
Obniżania podatków, który realizuje rząd Prawa i Sprawiedliwości w ciągu całych swoich rządów.
According to a survey carried out by the pollster Estimator at the request of the website dożyczy.pl, the Law and Justice Party can count on over 45% of support in the upcoming parliamentary elections, leaving its political opponents trailing behind.
45.4% of the respondents declared voting for the Law and Justice Party. Behind the ruling party is the Civic Platform Party with a score of 28.9%. In turn, the Democratic Left Alliance with the support of 5.4% may become the third force in the Polish parliament. The Polish People's Party would still enter the same with the support of 5.1%, and in the light of recent events, the Kukiz 15 movement may still count on 2.8% of support. According to the calculations by the website, the Law and Justice Party can count on 267 seats, Civic Platform 167, Democratic Left Alliance 13 and Polish People's Party 12. One seat would fall to the German minority.
Protesters gathered in Moscow today for one of the biggest political manifestations in Russian history, demanding free elections. These protests have been taking place in the country for the past week. This time, the Moscow officials allowed for a Saturday rally, but arrests were still made.
Despite the legality of the gathering, the Russian police arrested 11 people across different cities where protests were taking place as well. One of the opposition activists, Lubov Sobol, wrote on social media that prior to the manifestation, police officers entered and searched the offices of the supporters of another member of the opposition, Alexei Navalny. The protests in Russia have been taking place since July. It's estimated that 100,000 people took part in the manifestation, although the police say the number reached 200,000. Last week, the Russian law enforcement arrested more than 1,000 people during an illegal gathering.
That's it for today. See you next time on Poland Daily. But stay tuned for the Poland Daily Weather Report, followed by the Poland Daily Business section.
Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight, Poland will see overcast skies with showers in Białystok, Rzeszów and Lublin. The warmest cities will be Kraków and Rzeszów at 19 degrees, while the coldest cities will be Białystok and Olsztyn at 15 degrees. Tomorrow, we can expect thunderstorms in Warsaw, Poznań, Szczecin, Bydgoszcz, Lublin and Rzeszów, with temperatures varying from 25 to 28 degrees. The warmest city will be Kraków at 30 degrees and partly cloudy skies, while the coldest spot will be Olsztyn at 20 degrees. That is all for tonight. I invite you to join us later for Poland Daily Business.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. Well, I don't know how about you, but I'm personally tired of this Brexit story that is haunting us since 3 years. We almost every week hear new story, new ideas, whether United Kingdom will leave European Union and how it will be done. Now with new Prime Minister Boris Johnson, it is almost certain that they will leave the United States. United Europe, although the majority of Tories in the British Parliament is only one person. So how can they pass any laws that way? Artur Wróblewski, what are your feelings regarding this Brexit story?
I would quote Shakespeare, to be or not to be, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings of outrageous arrows or to die. We see that this is like a drama, and it's unfolding and it's continuing. We don't see any end in the tunnel, no light in the tunnel, but I think that we are heading for hard Brexit, because this is what Boris Johnson is promising. He's ready for hard Brexit or a hard boundary on the island of Ireland. So the situation is complicated, but let's remember that we have a group of rebels, conservative rebels, around former Chancellor Hammond. These people don't want a hard Brexit. Of course, this hard Brexit is related to so-called undemocratic stopgate.
The backstop.
Yes, the undemocratic backstop. This border, which is a hot issue.
European Union is taken hostage by this North Ireland and Ireland issue, and is trying to make the Brexit as difficult as possible. Well, little wonder.
Exactly. I think that majority of British now would like to stay in the customs union and would like to go for soft Brexit, to be still in the European Union, because let's remember that hard border will increase prices of food, will complicate medical supplies. It will cut the chain of medical supplies. It will also make life, generally speaking, more expensive for just common or average Brits. But, for example, who wants a hard Brexit and this Brexit on October 31st? For example, the United States and some people in the United Kingdom, United States companies, especially pharmaceutical companies, and President Donald Trump, who is speaking on behalf of those companies, is already promising a kind of free trade deal with the United Kingdom. And, for example, they would like to export from the United States to United Kingdom medical supplies, for example, from American medical pharmaceutical companies and agricultural products. They want this market to be open. It's a good deal for United States. That's why they are instigating a little bit this hard Brexit. But, of course, for average British citizen, this hard Brexit is not a good news at all.
Okay, so how Boris Johnson is going to put the Brexit through the parliament when his majority is almost non-existing?
This is a good question. We have a one-mandate majority, and after the summer break in September, when the whole parliament is coming back to the Westminster, they are going to probably pass a no-confidence vote for Boris Johnson government in case he goes for this hard Brexit. And then we could have a new general elections. When we have a new general elections, the outcome is uncertain, but probably the Tories will lose. So we see the situation, which is very complicated, and it's hard to predict anything. That's why I'm quoting this hesitating Hamlet, to be or not to be. What to do now? This is very a complicated issue, but of course it's a very important issue for the European Union. But on the other hand, we see that European Union is not going to renegotiate its mandate and to promise a new deal. We have already agreement between United Kingdom and the European Union. We have Michel Barnier, who is responsible for this deal, and he said no new negotiations possible. We have Stephen Barclay now, who is the secretary responsible for the Brexit in the new Boris Johnson government. We have people like David Frost, for example, or David Cummings, who are also advising Boris Johnson, but they are advising him a hard Brexit. So we see the situation how it was before, when Theresa May was trying to push through the agreement with the European Union, and she failed 3 times, and also so-called the orientation votes did not give any outcome, constructive outcome to solve this issue.
Definitely the countries like Poland and Central and Eastern Europe will lose on Brexit, because this is where our people are working and still send money to Poland.
Yes,
and also we have quite a big export to
United Kingdom, and it will become more expensive in case of the new custom duties. But let's remember that Polish citizens are taken care of, as well as other European citizens, but they have to register by December 2020 in the British system to stay in the United Kingdom and not to have any problems. If someone was in the United Kingdom living for 5 years and he can document this fact, there is no problem. But the person must remember to go to the computer, go online and register a stay to become a legal resident.
In case the Brexit will go on.
Exactly.
Is there any economical logic behind the Brexit from the British point of view? Will they buy cheaper products from United States, China, India, without of the protectionist market of European Union?
It's hard to see any competitive edge for United Kingdom after Brexit. Let's remember that the European Union has already signed many free trade deals with Vietnam, South Korea,
Japan,
Canada. So it's now easier to trade between the European Union members and other countries. Of course, the Brits could count on the United States and Donald Trump that he will give a good terms for a new free trade agreement for the United Kingdom. But do you believe that President Donald Trump, who is a transactional president and who is a very good businessman and a genius, that he will allow anybody to make money on the United States? No, I think the United Kingdom will lose. Not the United States will help United Kingdom in case if they crash out of the European Union and sign a new deal with the United States. I don't see any quick positive outcomes for the United Kingdoms after crashing out of the Union, but there will be a chaos, and I think life will be more expensive for average Brits. And we know that it's not true that, for example, the United Kingdom will immediately gain 350 million pounds, I think, which have been transferred to the European Union every week, as it was stated on the famous red bus, and Boris Johnson was claiming it was a fake news. United Kingdom is going to go for a very difficult divorce after November 1st.
They also count the pound will fell, and thus the British export will be more will be cheaper to the potential customers.
But let's remember that now financial companies are leaving London, or new companies and new investors are cancelling plans relating to London. Frankfurt and Paris is gaining due to this chaos, not London.
Okay, so in the next screening of the Hamlet by Shakespeare, we should cast Boris Johnson as a Hamlet. What about that, ladies and gentlemen?
Exactly.
Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University was our guest tonight, and that was it for Poland Daily Business.
Hello, and welcome again to Poland Daily Business Weather. The forecast for Poland for tomorrow calls for showers and overcast skies. We can expect thunderstorms in Warsaw, Poznań, Szczecin, Bydgoszcz, Lublin, and Rzeszów, and rain in Koszalin, Gdańsk, and Wrocław. The temperatures will vary between 20 to 30 degrees, with Kraków being the warmest city and Olsztyn the coldest. In Europe, Rome will be the warmest capital of the continent at 36 degrees. While Dublin will be the coldest at 16 degrees, and can expect scattered showers. Scandinavia will see showers, temperatures of 18 to 20 degrees, while the rest of the continent can expect partly cloudy skies and temperatures of 20 to 34 degrees. That is all for tonight. I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Good evening. My name is Emilia Pobłocka. Welcome to a special episode of the program Gwiazdy Republiki. It's special because we're going to talk about an amazing project with a star cast. There was nothing like it before in Poland. I think it would be very hard to invite over 300 actors who took part in this project, but some of them will definitely appear in the next episodes of the show. Today, my guest is the initiator and an author of a blog about media, Maciej Budzich, a blogger and a man of the year in terms of the Polish internet. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I think it would be okay if I say that you're the star of the internet and the initiator of this amazing project.
I am the co-author of the Audio Bible Super Production Project. Two people from two different worlds met and created this. I am from the internet world, and Krzysztof Czeczot is from the art and culture world. He's a producer and a director. We met some time ago and combined our love for audiobooks. We thought that we should do something that no one did before in this scale and quality.
W takiej skali, w takiej jakości. Proponuję, żeby teraz
Let's see a fragment of the film that will show us what we're going to talk about, and that is the audio Bible. Let's see it.
o Biblii audio, bardzo proszę, zobaczmy.
The Audio Bible Super Production, the biggest radio play in Europe, starring Jerzy Trela, Małgorzata Korzuchowska, Wojciech Malajkat, Anna Seniu, Piotr Frączewski, Adam Woronowicz, Krystyna Janda, Cezary Żak, Miłogos Tręczek and Roman Kłosowski. 500 actors and amateurs join the cast and support the production of an audio adaptation of the most important book in the world. Let's meet on bibliaaudio.pl.
Tak, tematem
The
naszej
topic of today's interview is the audio Bible. Let's start from Adam and Eve, from the very beginning. As you said, the two of you met and came up with this idea. When did it happen?
taki pomysł, kiedy to było?
2,5 roku temu.
It happened 2.5 years ago. This is when we started our work. We decided to make an audio adaptation of the entire Holy Bible, so the Old and the New Testament. This is over 110-hour-long audio with voices of 500 actors. There are nearly 1,000 characters in the Bible. We had over 500 actors, 300 professionals and 200 amateurs. It took us 9 months to get the script ready. We announced our project in April last year. Since then, we've been raising money. What is more important, we are sharing the results of our work for free. Everyone can listen to it or download it. We have recorded over 40 hours of the New Testament and some fragments of the Old Testament so far. Raising money is going just fine. That is why we are sharing the results of our work for free. In addition, we are getting reviews and reactions. And this is probably the most enjoyable thing in the whole project.
Najprzyjemniejsze, że
What are the reactions?
no one są bardzo dobre. I co ciekawe,
They are very good. At first glance, the Audio Bible sounds like a very Christian project.
to ma się na myśli projekt mocno chrześcijański.
Addressed to the Catholics.
Udało nam się troszeczkę odejść od tej takiej może...
Yes, but we successfully drifted away from this because we don't want the Audio Bible Super Production to be addressed only to the Catholics. We want this project to be addressed for everyone, for people that are far and close to God, people who feel the regret that they've never read the Bible for various reasons, but they want to.
Albo jeśli chodzi o kwestię wiary, albo ponieważ jest to...
This is a universal book.
Tam jest wiele archetypów.
Exactly. There are many archetypal figures. There are many stories that we can find in literature or even popular culture. The plots of many movies are based on archetypes and behaviors from the Bible. Everyone heard about Noah, Samson or Moses.
Wiele o Mojżeszu.
Słup obłoku również przeszedł z przodu i zajął ich tyły, stając między wojskiem egipskim a wojskiem izraelskim. I tam był obłok ciemnością, tu zaś oświecał noc. I nie zbliżyli się jedni do drugich przez całą noc. Mojżesz wyciągnął rękę nad morze, a Pan cofnął wody gwałtownym wiatrem wschodnim, który wiał przez całą noc i uczynił morze suchą ziemią.
ויבקעו המים, ויבואו בני ישראל, בתוך הים ביבשה,
środek morza po suchej ziemi, mając mur z wód po prawej i po lewej stronie. Egipcjanie ścigali. Wszystkie konie Faraona, jego rydwany i jeźdźcy weszli za nimi w środek morza. O świcie spojrzał Pan ze słupa ognia i ze słupa obłoku na wojsko egipskie i zmusił je do ucieczki. I zatrzymał koła ich rydwanów, tak że z wielką trudnością mogli się naprzód posuwać. Egipcjanie krzyknęli:
Uciekajmy przed Izraelem, bo w jego obronie Pan walczy z Egipcjanami!
A Pan rzekł do Mojżesza:
Wyciągnij rękę nad morze, aby wody zalały Egipcjan, ich rydwany i jeźdźców.
Wyciągnął Mojżesz rękę nad morze, które o brzasku dnia wróciło na swoje miejsce. Egipcjanie uciekając biegli naprzeciw falom i pogrążył ich Pan w środku morza. Powracające fale zatopiły rydwany i jeźdźców całego wojska Faraona, którzy weszli w morze, ścigając tamtych. Nie ocalał z nich ani jeden. Izraelici zaś szli po suchym dnie morskim, mając mur wodny po prawej i po lewej stronie.
W tym to dniu wybawił Pan Izraela z rąk Egipcjan. I widzieli Izraelici martwych Egipcjan na brzegu morza. Gdy Izraelici zobaczyli wielkie dzieło, którego dokonał Pan wobec Egipcjan, ulękli się Pana i uwierzyli Jemu oraz Jego słudze Mojżeszowi.
Bardzo Państwu dziękuję, że byliście dzisiaj.
It was truly a great conversation and an incredible project. Maciek, thank you very much for being our guest. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching and see you next week.
Bądźcie Państwo z nami. Dziękuję za dziś i do zobaczenia za tydzień.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are visiting the Pawiak Prison Museum in Warsaw. This prison is one of the most famous places for Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, where 100,000 prisoners passed through these gates during the war, of which 47,000 were murdered. This prison is one of the most well-known sites of Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, with around 100,000 prisoners passing through its gates during the war, and 37,000 of them were murdered. Join us as we explore the history of one of the most brutal aspects of the German occupation. So you were telling me that the terror inside of the Pawiak prison has gained intensity over the years, and it kind of reached its peak around the year 1942, 1943, and I was wondering, like, when at its peak, what does it look like?
Cóż, przede wszystkim warto skupić się tutaj na terenach leżących wokół Pawiaka.
It's very important to focus on the area surrounding the Pawiak prison as well. The Nazi terror touched not only people living inside the prison walls, but also the inhabitants of the district they established, the ghetto, which existed till May 1943. On its grounds, the Nazi Germans set up a labor camp for Poles. People who committed minor administrative offences were placed there. They were forced to serve a sentence for very paltry offences. After the fall of the ghetto uprising in May 1943, the Nazi Germans destroyed this area. At the same time, they established the Warsaw concentration camp in the area of the former military prison, on the corner of the Gąsia and the Zamenhof streets, literally 200 steps from the Pawiak prison. Initially, the camp was supposed to be part of the Pawiak prison. Later, however, they decided that it's going to be functioning on its own. The camp grew very fast. The first prisoners placed here in the summer of 1943 were forced to get rid of the ruins and set up the barracks for newly arrived prisoners. For the next several months, there were two camps that functioned in the area of the Pawiak prison, the security police camp and the Warsaw concentration camp. Later, the first camp was moved to the Litewska street, while the Warsaw concentration camp was growing so fast that it reached the border of the district. In the area of the Pawiak prison, in the ruins of the neighboring tenement houses, after the fall of the ghetto uprising, the Nazi Germans began to murder the Pawiak prisoners. Thousands of prisoners, including many unregistered in proper files, died in mass executions. Their bodies were burned in the ghetto. The Nazi Germans were already blurring their traces of their crimes. After they started to put into use the crematorium, they stopped burning the bodies in the place of executions, but started transporting them several streets further instead. Like I said, the Germans blurred the traces of the crimes they committed around the Pawiak prison. At the same time, the Pawiak prisoners observed that the German guards, the so-called Wamans, when occupying their positions on guard towers and the upper floors of the prison building, often shot at people trying to save themselves from the burning buildings. They were murdering defenseless people. This was the reality of the Pawiak prison in 1942-1943.
Tak wyglądała rzeczywistość wokół Pawiaka w 1942-1943 roku.
People belonging to the Polish intelligentsia or the Polish intellectual and cultural elite were highly endangered to be sent to the Pawiak prison. Members or suspected members of the Polish resistance movement also made up a large percentage of the inmates. However, any Pole could, if unlucky, be caught in the street roundup and sent to the Pawiak prison. You told me that the prisoners here at Pawiak prison ended up here mostly as a result of a special action targeting the intellectual and the Polish elites. And also at the same time, there were prisoners brought here for having been suspected in being a part of a Polish underground movement. Yeah. I was wondering if there are any other reasons that someone would end up here in Pawiak prison.
Tak naprawdę w mury Pawiaka w latach okupacji niemieckiej mogli trafić wszyscy.
In fact, all the inhabitants of Warsaw could have been taken to the Pawiak prison during the German occupation. People caught in roundups were most often sent to the Pawiak prison. A roundup was an action organized on the streets of Warsaw, public places or private properties and apartments by the Nazi Germans. What did the roundup look like? Usually, the German police, along with the SS, closed a street or a couple of streets. All the people who happened to be on the street were checked. Those who didn't have proper documents, that is, those who couldn't prove that they work in enterprises or perform services for Nazi Germany, could have been arrested. If a person carried objects that indicated the cooperation with the Polish underground, that person was taken by the Gestapo immediately. Others were usually transported to the Pawiak prison or the German military barracks. This is where the imprisoned people were selected. Strong, healthy people who were able to work were sent to labor work to Germany or to concentration camps. On the other hand, suspects or ill people who were unable to work were often shot in the area of the Warsaw Death Ring, on the streets or near the Pawiak prison, the former ghetto. People were killed in massive executions. Information about their deaths appeared on posters hanging on the city walls. The posters informed that the murdered people worked for the Polish underground or committed crimes. The children also could have been taken to the Pawiak prison. The children who were rounded up were often transported to Pawiak. There were also children who were born in Pawiak. One of them, hidden by parents, spent 3 years in there, so everyone could have been taken to the Pawiak prison during the German occupation. Everyone who found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nothing could have saved from arrest. Nothing could have protected from the Nazi Germans.
Nie było praktycznie siły, która mogła uchronić przed aresztowaniem, nie było siły, która mogłaby uchronić przed represjami ze strony Niemców.
So you're telling me that apart from the mass executions taking place here, a lot of the prisoners were also sent to German concentration camps. I was wondering what numbers are we talking and which camps were they sent to?
W tym wypadku mówimy o około 60 000.
We're talking about 60,000 prisoners sent to Nazi Germany. Most of them were placed in the Nazi concentration camps. We know that many of them never came back. When it comes to the concentration camps where the prisoners of the Pawiak prison were sent to, the biggest transports were sent to Auschwitz, Stutthof, Gross-Rosen, Ravensbrück and Mauthausen concentration camps. Of course, we know that these are not the only concentration camps that the Pawiak prisoners were sent to. Today, the plaques commemorating these places stand in front of the museum. Also, we can see the names of the concentration camps on the map at the exhibition right behind us.
Wymienione są również na mapie widocznej tu zaraz obok nas na ekspozycji.
As we have seen today, the Pawłek prison is a place of special importance in Polish history. During the 4 years it was operated by the Germans, the level of brutality created an urge for revenge, which finally erupted on August 1st, 1944, the first day of the Warsaw Uprising. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
The Warsaw Uprising began on the 1st of August, 1944. 0 hour, or W hour as they called it, was supposed to be at 5 o'clock. But the first outbreak of shooting began earlier in the day at Żoliborz, the northern suburb of Warsaw. That encounter, which began at 1:30 p.m., was the first skirmish of the Warsaw Uprising. As the saying goes, much has been written. Was it a good idea? Was it launched at the right time? Were there other opportunities? You may well ask. The fact remains that it did take place, and the people who took part in it were brave and beautiful. In the annals of uprisings against tyrannical rule, the Warsaw Uprising is unsurpassed. For 63 days, the Poles waited for the Russians to come across the river from the east and aid them in their rebellion against the Nazis. This did not happen. History has told us why. The Russians were quite happy to watch the Poles be destroyed by the Germans, rather than for the Poles to be free after World War II. There is no doubt about this. This was Stalin's plan. The Warsaw Uprising is indelible on the memory of the 20th century. At the Warsaw Uprising Museum, this history is set in stark terms. You're able to take a close look at those 63 days of fighting for freedom. This is an experience that will not leave you untouched. It will change the way you think about history of this time. And it will remind you of what a great capital Warsaw actually is. The city that stood against one of the greatest tyrannies the world has ever seen and rose again to become a modern leading city in Europe. The next series of episodes will take you through the history of the Warsaw Uprising. Thanks for watching.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Poland Daily Travel. We're in a very special place, not just the Warsaw Uprising Museum, but a place of remembering fighters in the Warsaw Uprising, of whom there were thousands and thousands, and of whom thousands and thousands perished. Okay, so what is the, take us through the significance of the place and some of the things that are here.
You may see that here we have symbolic graves of those who perished during the Warsaw Rising, and we need to stress that there were 18,000 fallen insurgents and 150,000 civilians who died during those difficult days, yes. And we need to remember that Germans were armed to their teeth. We had nothing, but we keep struggling for 63 days, waiting for the Allies to do something, waiting for Soviets to finally move from the other side of the Vistula River, but it never happened, yes? And you may see that we are encircled by 100 chosen photographs of those young and beautiful people who were here, who did not hesitate. Does it pay off to lose my life at the barricade? They just went fighting. They had this sense of duty. They felt that this is the moment they need to do something for their country. Yes, so this is really impressive. Yes, because still historians have those debates. whether Warsaw Rising had any sense, yes, at all.
Whether it was the right thing to do, whether it made sense.
Yeah. And the opponents of the Warsaw Uprising say that...
The cynics.
That it had no sense at all because those young were killed and there was no one to build New Poland. But we need to remember that New Poland is a communist Poland. So those who survived were very often chased, they were persecuted, incarcerated and very often murdered and buried forced to wear German uniforms, yes. So even to humiliate them after death, yes. So this is something we need to keep in our minds, yes. And if you look at the numbers, during the Rising, 18,000 fallen insurgents, but in between 1944 and 1956, in the harshest period of Stalinist era, 50,000 Poles got killed in the times of peace, yes, in times of liberty. Such was the liberty offered by Stalinists here.
So the upshot is that even though people criticize the Warsaw Uprising, saying, was it the right thing to do because so many people died, it's easy to criticize afterwards because their point of view was we had been preparing all this time, plans had been laid with the agreement of the Polish government in exile in London, with the agreement of the Allied powers, including the Russians, the Americans, and the British. They had been told and encouraged to start because the Russians were coming to aid them. So they fell into a trap. So they weren't, had they been operating under the notion that no one was going to help them, and if they had not been encouraged, then they wouldn't have done it. So to now criticize it afterwards based on the information that those people had and the desperation under which they were living and the elation of actually going on the attack and leading the attack, then we would come to a different conclusion. I'm quite I mean, just looking at it from a human point of view, looking from your own point of view. It's easy to sit on your hands and be a cynic. Nowadays.
So many years after all those horrors, all the times of turmoil.
Exactly. What about, do you know are there any particular people that we should point out here?
There are incredible stories behind those photographs and behind those artifacts which are placed here. For example, I'd like to show you...
You want to show me something here?
Yes, okay. What's here. We may see parts of binoculars, glasses, and keys of a woman who got shot in one of the executions during the Warsaw Rising, yes. Her daughter saw this execution. Her daughter was 15 years old. She managed to escape, but once she came back to bury her mom, there was nothing left. She found only keys to the apartment and parts of binoculars. So, as I said, stories behind all these things, and it never ends, yes.
There's something else we need to see outside, isn't there?
Yeah.
So we're going to take people outside in the second part of this program, this short episode, and show them something related to this, right?
Let's go.
Well, let's not tell them. Let's go out and just and go and see it. Okay? Stay with us. Poland Daily Travel at the Warsaw Uprising Museum during the 75th anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising. It's Will here with Ola. Okay, let's go.